Hi, everyone. I'm Gold Derby News and Features Editor Ray Richmond, and I'm here today with Aria Mia Loberti, who stars in the four-part Netflix limited series All the Light We Cannot See, that's adapted from the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel. Aria, it seems like in your case, All the Light We Cannot See had been more like All the Acting I Cannot Do,
Yeah.
uh, until overnight it all changed. Um, you would always just assumed, I guess, that as a blind woman, acting simply wasn't an option. Yet here you are talking to me as a potential Golden Globe and Screen Actors Guild Awards nominee and a future Emmy nominee as well. Pretty mind blowing and remarkable stuff, huh?
Yeah, no, I don't know what's happening. I really don't. I try to just take it one day at a time because I genuinely, if I think about it too hard, I stop
Right.
being
Well,
able to be rational.
okay, good.
It
Oh no, no. Please keep being rational, at least for the next 19 minutes.
Yeah,
And
no, it's amazing because I never allowed myself to dream about this. And then it's really the type of dream that I think a lot of people had and that I probably would have had if I felt like I could have dreamed about it in the first place. So to be able to be living that dream and have people so interested in what I'm doing, um, I try not to think about awards to be totally honest with
yeah,
you, but like
no, I know. Yeah, and I'm
every
sure.
single one, like my parents when I was little and we would watch every award show. And so like just to think that maybe something like that could happen, I again I try not to think about it too hard.
Yeah. Okay, you don't have to. That's our
Yeah.
job. Um, I know you've been telling this story, Aria, about how you landed the role of Marie Laure in this project quite a bit lately. I'm going to ask you to do it one more time if you don't mind. I know it started
Okay.
with your submitting that audition tape, despite never having acted in the project before or having auditioned before.
No, so I heard about the audition from a teacher who I actually hadn't spoken to since I was about 11 or 12. And every now and then she would see my mom because I'm from Rhode Island and Rhode Island's very small. But she didn't really know what I was up to. She knew I was going to school and I was at the time in my PhD program. And she said, I wondered if you were familiar with this book, but um, every one of my clients, she teaches young people how to use a white cane. She's like, every one of my clients who's female is going out for this, and I can see you doing it. And I would hope you would maybe try out. And I said no. And then I thought about it a little bit, and I was, like I said, in my PhD. I had just come back from England. I completed my master's there, and I did 4 years in undergrad here in Rhode Island, and I was just unhappy and I didn't really know why because I'd spent my whole life fighting for my education, fighting for others' rights to an education. And I was literally as far as you could go at the top and doing really well. And I was at the best program in the country or maybe the world for what I studied. And I wasn't happy and I didn't know why. And so I said, maybe I will send in a tape because I love the book. And I did. And I sent my first take in. I didn't have any friends because I just moved. And so I recorded all of the lines opposite Marie, which were Daniel, her father's lines, on
Mhm.
my iPad, left space for me to go and film the Marie lines on screen, and then sent in my first take. And now it's on the internet, so that's a bit ridiculous. But I really I'm glad I took the leap because I didn't think I had that kind of confidence. I'm glad I wasn't embarrassed or tentative and that I just did it.
It seems like confidence is not something you lack. I mean, just from the outside looking in, Aria, you're a doctoral student at Penn State. You're a triple major at the University of Rhode Island, a Fulbright scholar. Obviously, you were just sitting around wasting your life. So,
No.
no, no, I'm
I
kidding.
tried not to. No.
I'm kidding. You were an incredible high achiever, and so I can understand. You're thinking, well, I don't know, why do I need this? But you tried anyway, and you threw your hat in
Yeah,
the
and I
ring.
think it's just that feeling of like I felt like I was almost this isn't quite right, but I felt like the best way I could describe it is like I was living someone else's life.
Mhm.
Like I felt like I didn't know what I was supposed to do with my life, and I was just kind of going through the motions because everyone tells you in college like you have to follow a linear path, and I didn't know really what I was good at or what I wanted to do. I just knew that people seemed to applaud me for being smart and nurture me for that. So that's why I did what I did, but I never felt comfortable in that space really as a career, even though I still read the stuff that I studied in my PhD. I still read it casually. So now I actually feel like weirdly that was the first step in me discovering myself. And I think a lot of 20 somethings struggle with that. So it was just a privilege to be able to find that, whether it was acting or something else. It was
And
just, I
maybe
felt really lucky to find my calling.
discovering what you were meant to do, maybe because you
Yeah.
find out you've landed this role
Yeah.
against all odds, even though you're sure they were going to hire a sighted actress.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be someone famous. I was really excited to see the movie either way, like, because I got to read all these little tidbits of the script. So I was still excited. I never thought for a minute I would get it.
And then your life changes overnight.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very sudden. I went into the phone call where Sean told me, the director, Sean Levy, told me that I got the part. Um, I went into it thinking I was getting rejected. And I think there's a recording now online of that Zoom call. And I think you can see it on my face before he says it, that it looked like I was.
Well, absolutely. And the thing is, Aria, usually, from what I can gather, I'm actually married to an actress, so I know these things. Usually, they don't call you
Well, I didn't know
if
that. Yeah.
if the answer is no, and you're
I know that now.
yeah. but but still, so now you get this, you find out, oh my God, you're crying, you're hugging your dog Ingrid, and now
Yeah.
you have to put your studies aside, at
Mm.
least temporarily. Do you feel like you can be both a doctor and an actress? I wonder what kind of precedent there is for
Well, I know, well, weirdly, we have one example. We have Mayim Bialik, who's a really good role
that. That's
model. So
right. That's right.
yeah. So I think we have one example of that. So it gives me a little bit of hope. That said, I'm in a really interesting place. I think the difference between our two stories is STEM is really welcoming to people who want to use their PhDs for different things, whether to inform policy or to teach or whatever. Like they're more open. I was in a humanities degree. I was, for all intents and purposes, an ancient historian. I studied the history of communication, and I recognize that the humanities are a little bit more restrictive with welcoming people who may want to continue their studies, but who don't want to be a professor. It's very much set up for you're going to be a professor and nothing else. And like I said, I was questioning things and I had wondered, like, maybe I want to do something creative, but like maybe I've always advocated, like, maybe I want to run for office instead. And like, even that doesn't quite fit in with the mentality of a humanities PhD. And I hope that can change because, to be totally honest with you, I use what I studied every single day. And I've been on a leave of absence now for about a year. And I don't really see in the near future a place where I can go back because it's quite time restrictive. But if there's an opportunity for me to be able to work around my schedule and make that happen, I think I would use it as an actor, but also like as a public figure representing a population that's not represented at all. You're creating a new language every day, and that's what I studied, how words have power to like shape our reality. And I think it can never hurt to know more, and it can never hurt to be around people who are as smart or smarter than you. And being at a university setting is just one place where I could find such people. But honestly, being on film sets are also they scratch that same itch. I get to work with people every day who inspire me intellectually just as much as they do artistically and physically. So no matter what, like the door's always open for me to return. At least I have a good role model in that sense. And then I feel like, you know, anything can happen. But right now I'm really focusing my energy on my career. I feel like it's an important moment right now for me to really work on my craft and get better at it and put myself out there a bit more. So
I was going to say you can't really necessarily go back to the life you had before. To some degree, you almost owe it to yourself, I would think, to at least explore the possibilities of a future, at least partial acting career.
yeah, it's been my full time for the last 2 years, essentially.
Right. Let's talk about the experience. You were talking about being on the set, Aria, of being on the set of All the Light We Cannot See in Budapest. You're now there trying to do a job you've never done before. in front of 300 people. It wasn't just like a director and a key grip and a
That's what I
cinematographer.
thought. Yeah.
You're there with a giant crew,
And they were
which
all
had
the
to be,
top
which
of
had to,
their,
with,
yeah.
uh, but you were assisted by your service dog Ingrid, uh,
Yeah.
and that helped, I'm sure.
Yeah. So every
Help.
time we had a new set, she would like lead me through the set. I'd figure it out and then she would go chill and I would do like that's how I did my blocking for most things except for the beach because she hates water. So she didn't want anything to do with that.
Oh, really? She hates
Yeah.
water, huh? Yeah, I guess I've known some dogs that hate water. What
Yeah.
was it? Did it take you were on this set for months. I
Mhm. Yeah.
was. Did it take a lot of getting used to? Did you get into the swing of it pretty quickly?
Yeah. Yes and no. I think so. We had a 5.5 month shoot. We shot for 90 days, 6 day weeks. 12 plus hour days when I'd show up at like 4:30 in the morning and I wouldn't leave till it was well past it was dark out. So um I think it was really interesting because I adjusted to that schedule really well. I really thrive on that. I have a lot of energy and I don't sleep much. So I really thrived on that. I felt fulfilled and I still felt like I could have kept going at the end of the day. Um what was difficult though was like being a first timer because like you said, there are 300 people there. They're all like the top of their field. Like they've been the
Hmm.
top of their field for forever. I mean, it's freaking Hugh Laurie, and he's like there, and I'm there, and it doesn't feel like it should be that just wrong. So
And
I was just
Mark
and
Ruffalo as
Mark
well.
Ruffalo, yeah, and like and every single person who came in, whether they were a day player or whether they were there for weeks, they were all at the top of their game in terms of acting. They all had a lot of credits under their belt. And then each of our crew members had like these illustrious careers in whatever it was that they represented. Um, and so I just was like, I'm the odd one out, but they all rallied around me and I learned something from every single person, whether it was the, on-set Hungarian PAs or whether it was Sean and Hugh and Mark. And I think that was what really
Sean being the director and producer.
Sean being the director. Yeah. And I think so for the first 3 weeks, they filmed Lewis's scenes. Lewis plays Werner very well, I might add. And he did his 3 weeks of scenes that didn't pertain to my character. And I was there and I observed. And I didn't realize at the time how unusual that was that Sean gave me his time. He was filming those scenes and he was with me, teaching me how he was picking camera angles, how he was picking lenses, how he determined what his shot list would be for that day, how he adapted the text of the script and the book into something visual. I was with him at the monitors all the time. And then Lewis, who I really have to give credit to because I think he did such a wonderful performance, wonderful job. At the same time, he's coming in and he's telling me, okay, when Sean's on this lens and when he's using this frame, my performance shifts. It's different here than it would be there. And so I went to basically 3 weeks of intensive shadowing that were the equivalent of 4 years of drama school, probably like better from what I've heard from people who go to drama school, no judgment. But like it was just this one-on-one, thought-provoking, interesting, fun playground. And then, I go in and I do my scenes. And I started for maybe 3 weeks to a month all alone in the attic. So it was just me and the crew and Sean. And we shot all those solo scenes. And
All the
that,
scenes where you're on the radio.
yeah. And you know, as I told other actors that later on when other actors were coming in, they were like, "Oh my God, like scenes where I'm alone are the scariest things because you don't have anyone to play off of." And I think it's a really interesting decision on Sean's part to do that first because it allowed me to grow as an artist so that I had myself really to interact with. So I had this construction of this character that I'd created and I was using myself, Aria, as a sounding board for Marie. So I was able to shape this character that I'd spent months prior researching, that I'd spent weeks, getting movement and mannerisms down for, and we have nothing in common. And those 3 weeks allowed me to build that from the ground up, literally.
Mhm.
So when Mark and Hugh and Marion come in, I could just soar. And then I had their advice, but I had
That was
my own
smart.
bedrock first
Yeah,
to
you
know
really,
the decisions that I want to
you
make.
really had, you really had a kind of the backbone of it all, and
Yeah.
you could,
So it was
you could,
very smart. It was scary. And I think it was a risk almost, but it was very smart of him to do it that way.
Ari, I think you're, if I'm correct, you might be the first blind actor to have a major role or play the lead in a Hollywood production of this scale.
Yeah,
Probably not a
I believe
scenario you
so.
would
I
think in
mean,
your
there
life.
are a few other actors who happen to be blind. I don't use the phrase blind actor.
What would be the correct phrase?
Actor. I'm an actor.
Simply actor,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, but someone with your disability
Yeah. I think
having that.
I usually describe it as I think we need to make some progress with authenticity. And we know when it's important to tell stories of people who have previously been voiceless or marginalized. And in this case, it's someone who's blind, and it makes sense to go to someone with that lived experience. So in the case of this character who happens to be blind, it's required that the actor share that lived experience and also be blind. But the blindness should never precede the actor and
Mhm.
precede the art that I do. The same way, like, okay, I have digestive problems. Like, I'm not going to limit my career to playing characters with digestive problems. That's really
Right.
silly. But maybe I
No,
could bring a little insight into that. But people with digestive problems are not marginalized. So it's a silly analogy, but you see what I mean.
no, absolutely. And thank you for
Yeah,
correcting me on
it's okay.
the term.
It's
Is
okay.
there was there an element though, Aria, of feeling like you're carrying kind of the hopes and dreams of a sight impaired community on your shoulders? And is that
Yeah, I
intimidating
think
or
that's really
inspiring?
hard sometimes because like I said to you at the beginning, or I sort of implied it, that I never had anybody to look up to. I never had anybody to turn on the TV and and like just see someone like me. If I did witness a blind character in a piece, it was portrayed by someone who was sighted, who was putting on the mannerisms of someone who had a sleep shade over their eyes for the first time and would obviously be really nervous and scared, and they'd shuffle their feet and their eyes would be vacant and they wouldn't know how to make eye contact, and this very spaced out vapid expression. And that's not true. It's not true for anyone. You can't look at someone and gauge the amount of vision they have, and you can't judge someone's physical capabilities based on the amount of vision they have. And I think, unfortunately, 100 years of films have taught the world that something like that is the case when it's not. And so I feel the weight of that being changed. I also know that people who have never experienced this population before, and maybe only going on film representations of it, would be very surprised to see that Marie doesn't look like the stereotype. It's a very different read on a character who can't
It's
see.
true.
And
That's
yeah,
absolutely true.
but I
Uh,
see all of these young people, the thousands of actresses who audition for this part are a case in point, but I look at shows like This Is Us and Doctor Who. There's an incredible actress who had an authentic role as a blind character. There was an actress in Women Talking who portrayed a wonderful character, all of whom should have these brilliant careers because they're so talented. And there are so many other people like me, I think, who are out there probably who don't think they can dream about this. And what I really want to do is make space in the industry for those people. But I also want to make sure that casting is not done through a lens of judgment, that people who are physically suited and suited in terms of talent for their roles can get them and are not limited by other people's limitations. I think that's really important, and it's time that the door is held open. And I'm glad the glass ceiling has been broken, but like we're still stepping on shards of glass everywhere, so it's going to take some time.
Well put. Do you think, all right, your casting represents real change in the industry all by itself?
Yeah, I do. I think it would have been really easy in a lot of ways for Netflix to do the usual. And they took the time to do it. From what I've heard, a months long search. I think they started in July. I didn't come along till October. And they kept looking until they found their person. And I think that demonstrates that not only is it possible, but it should be a lot easier because this type of talent should be represented a bit more fully, I think. But also you see the final product, right? And it's not perpetuating these stereotypes. It's not causing harm for this community. It's honoring them and it's honoring their culture. And that's my culture and my identity. And I tried to hide it my whole life because it meant that if I showed one iota of it, I wouldn't fit in. I wouldn't belong. I wouldn't have friends. I'd be abused, neglected, mistreated. So I hid it my whole life, but it's a beautiful culture. And I want it to be celebrated. So I think now we have this opportunity to make real change, but I have to give credit to actors of color and LGBTQ plus actors because they've done a lot of this work already that I'm modeling my work after. And I'm standing on their shoulders in a way because they have had to champion the same fight for their communities and move past stereotypes and caricatures and oppression. And their creation of art has changed the world, has changed the perception of their cultures and their identities. And this is just the next step to follow. And it's 2023, and maybe it's a little late, but it's happening. And I think that's amazing. And I'm really grateful for the people who came before me to make sure that we can get even further this time.
I appreciate that comparison and that explanation. Thank you, Aria. We're going to actually end things there. We're all 4 installments of All the Light We Cannot See is available to stream over Netflix. Aria Mia Loberti, you are an inspiration. Best of luck this award season and in your life. And I appreciate you joining us today at Gold Derby.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.